And she left everything to Riley Keough, who is overseeing Graceland and her mother's estate. Now, we've reached out to Riley Keough for further comment. She's not going to say anything about this, but what she has said in the past is that she supports.
Lisa Marie Presley is rushed to a hospital in Calabasas, California. She never comes back out. At 54 years old, the only child of Elvis Presley, the woman who carried the weight of the most famous name in rock and roll her entire life, is gone, just like that. No warning, no final interview, no dramatic farewell. Just here one day, gone the next, leaving behind 4 children, a complicated legacy, and an estate worth hundreds of millions of dollars sitting wide open like a wound. The world stopped. Fans gathered outside Graceland in the January cold, candles in hand, flowers piling up at the gates the way they always do when a Presley dies. Priscilla stood at the memorial and wept. Riley Keough, Lisa Marie's oldest daughter, held herself together in front of the cameras with the kind of stillness that only comes from absolute devastation. The grief was real. Nobody's questioning that. Every single person in that family lost something irreplaceable on January 12th. But here's the thing about grief in a family with this much money attached to it. It doesn't get to just be grief. It never does. Because the moment Lisa Marie Presley took her last breath, a clock started ticking. And not everyone in that family was counting down to the same thing. Within weeks of Lisa Marie's death, a legal document was filed in a Los Angeles probate court. Not a tribute foundation, not a scholarship in her name. A petition, filed by Priscilla Presley, challenging the validity of a trust amendment that Lisa Marie had signed years before her death. An amendment that, if upheld, would determine who controlled everything. Graceland, the Elvis Presley name, the likeness rights, the royalties, the entire machine that Elvis built and Priscilla shaped, and Lisa Marie spent decades trying to reclaim. Let that land for a second. Your daughter just died. Her body is barely cold, and your first legal move is to challenge a document she signed about what happens to her estate. Now, to understand why that petition was so explosive, you have to understand what that trust amendment actually did. Because this isn't just about who gets the mansion. This is about something much bigger than real estate. Lisa Marie Presley's estate, centered around Graceland, is worth somewhere in the range of $500 million when you factor in the property itself, the Elvis likeness rights, the ongoing royalties, the Graceland tourism operation that draws hundreds of thousands of visitors every year. This isn't just a house. This is a brand, a corporation, a piece of American mythology that has been generating serious money for decades. And for most of that time, Priscilla Presley has had her hands on the wheel. When Elvis died in 1977, he left everything to Lisa Marie. She was 9 years old, so naturally a trust was established. Priscilla was named as a co-trustee, a guardian of the estate until Lisa Marie was old enough to take over. That makes sense. Nobody hands a 9-year-old the keys to a $500 million empire. But here's where the story gets complicated. Here's where what looks like protection starts to look like something else entirely. Priscilla didn't just manage the estate, she transformed it. She opened Graceland to the public in 1982. She built the tourism infrastructure. She licensed Elvis's image, partnered with companies, expanded the brand. And she did all of this brilliantly, no one's disputing that. But in doing it brilliantly, she also made herself indispensable. She wove herself into the financial fabric of the estate in a way that was very, very hard to separate from, even after Lisa Marie came of age and was supposed to take the reins. And then in 2016, something changed. Lisa Marie quietly signed an amendment to her living trust. It removed 2 people from their trustee positions, Priscilla Presley and Lisa Marie's longtime business manager, Marie Presley. In their place, she named her own children, Riley Keough and her twin brother Benjamin Keough, as the sole trustees who would inherit control of everything after her death. She didn't announce it, she didn't hold a press conference, she just did it. Signed her name, had it notarized, and filed it away. The way you do when you've made a decision you're completely certain about. And then she died, and Priscilla found out. And suddenly, that quietly filed document became the most contested piece of paper in the entire Presley universe. Priscilla's legal petition zeroed in on one specific claim. The signature on that 2016 amendment didn't look right. The I in Lisa Marie, not dotted the way Lisa Marie typically dotted it. The notarization potentially irregular. Therefore, Priscilla argued the document may not be valid, may not reflect Lisa Marie's true wishes. And if it's invalid, Then the asterisk previous version of the trust controls, the one that still has Priscilla in it. Now stop. Think about what is being alleged here. Priscilla Presley, in a court document on the record, is raising the possibility that her own daughter's legal paperwork was forged, or at minimum, improperly executed. She is standing over Lisa Marie's grave and saying, "I'm not sure this is what she really wanted." Riley Keough was 23 days away from giving birth to her first child when her mother died. 23 days. She became a mother and an orphan within the same month. She was simultaneously navigating newborn sleep deprivation and burying the woman who raised her. And in the middle of all of that, a legal challenge from her grandmother, forcing her to walk into a courtroom and defend the last major decision her mother made about her own estate. Think about the sheer indecency of that timing. Think about what it takes to file that petition in that moment. Either Priscilla genuinely believed the document was fraudulent, which raises a terrifying set of questions about who she thought was manipulating her daughter, or she knew exactly what she was doing, and she chose to do it anyway, banking on Riley being too overwhelmed, too grief-stricken, too exhausted to fight back effectively. She miscalculated, because Riley Keough did fight back, and what she uncovered in the process wasn't just a dispute over a signature. It was the full picture of what Lisa Marie had been fighting against for years, and why she'd been so desperate to get it out of certain hands before it was too late. She didn't just challenge a signature. She challenged everything Lisa Marie chose to do with the last years of her life. And that tells you everything. Let's talk about what Priscilla actually put in that petition. Because it's easy to say, she challenged the document and move on. But the specifics matter here. The specifics are what separate a legitimate legal concern from something far more calculated. And once you hear exactly what was argued in black and white, filed with a court, on the public record, you're going to understand why this wasn't just a family dispute. This was a declaration of war dressed up in legal language. Priscilla's team pointed to the signature on the 2016 Trust Amendment and flagged two things. First, the handwriting. Specifically the way Lisa Marie was written, the I in Marie, allegedly not dotted in the way Lisa Marie typically dotted it. Second, the notarization. The argument being that the document may not have been properly witnessed and certified according to California legal requirements. On paper, those sound like reasonable concerns, technicalities worth examining. The kind of thing a careful executor raises out of an abundance of caution. Except this wasn't raised by a neutral party. This was raised by one of the two people the document removed from power, and that changes everything about how you read it. Because here's what Priscilla's petition was really saying, stripped of all the legal dressing. It was saying, Lisa Marie's decision, a decision she made 6 years before she died, a decision she had 6 years to revoke and never did, might not count, might not be real, might be the product of someone else's hand, someone else's agenda, someone else's manipulation of a woman who apparently couldn't be trusted to manage her own affairs. A mother questioning her daughter's competence from beyond the grave. And not just her competence, her authenticity, her agency. The petition wasn't grieving Lisa Marie, it was quietly, methodically dismantling her, suggesting that the most important legal decision Lisa Marie made about her own estate was somehow suspect. That her signature, her wishes, her deliberate and documented choice to put her children in charge, all of it potentially invalid, potentially not hers, potentially something that needs a court to sort out. That is not protection. That is erasure with a filing fee attached. But to really understand why Lisa Marie made that amendment in 2016, why she specifically removed Priscilla and her business manager from the trust, you have to go back 2 years earlier. Because the 2016 amendment didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of a financial catastrophe that Lisa Marie spent years trying to recover from, and even longer trying to explain publicly without anyone really listening. In 2018, Lisa Marie Presley filed a lawsuit against Marie Presley, the same Marie Presley who, along with Priscilla, the 2016 amendment removed from her trust. The lawsuit was staggering. Lisa Marie alleged that Presley, who had managed her finances for years, had been systematically mismanaging her estate, negligently, potentially worse than negligently. She claimed that an estate that should have been worth approximately $100 million had been reduced, drained, down to around $14,000 in liquid assets by the time she discovered what had happened. $14,000 from $100 million, gone. Lisa Marie alleged that her money had been funneled into bad investments, that she'd been kept in the dark about the true state of her finances, and that by the time she realized the full scope of the damage, years of value had simply evaporated. She was, by her own account, financially decimated while Marie Presley continued drawing management fees. The lawsuit was eventually settled, terms undisclosed, as these things usually are. But the damage to Lisa Marie's trust in the people managing her affairs, that was never going to be settled out of court. Now sit with that timeline. Lisa Marie discovers the financial devastation, launches a lawsuit, and 2 years before the lawsuit even becomes public in 2016, she quietly amends her trust to remove the two people most connected to the management of her estate, Keough and Priscilla. She does it without fanfare, without a press release. She just does it, and she replaces them with her own children, the people she actually trusts. The people who have no financial incentive to mismanage what she leaves behind, because they are what she's leaving it behind for. That is not a woman who was confused. That is not a woman whose signature might have been forged. That is a woman who had been burned, who had done her homework, and who made a calculated, protective decision to put the right people in charge before it was too late. And Priscilla's petition, filed in the weeks after Lisa Marie died, threatened to undo all of it. Threatened to drag the estate back into a structure Lisa Marie had specifically and deliberately dismantled. Filed at the precise moment when Riley was least equipped to fight it, least emotionally fortified, least practically prepared to engage in a prolonged legal battle. But here's where Priscilla's calculation fell apart. She underestimated what Riley actually had access to. She underestimated what Lisa Marie had left behind, not just in terms of the legal documents themselves, but in terms of the paper trail surrounding them. The communications, the records, the documented history of why Lisa Marie made the choices she made and what she was protecting her children from. Riley didn't walk into that courtroom empty-handed, and heartbroken, hopping sympathy would carry the day. She walked in with evidence, with context, with the full documented picture of a woman who had spent years systematically, deliberately, legally securing her children's future and the receipts to prove it. The signature wasn't forged, the document was valid, and every attempt to suggest otherwise was going to have to contend with the reality of what Lisa Marie had built around that amendment. The reasoning behind it, the years of financial warfare that preceded it, the very specific, very documented reasons why those two names had to come off that trust. You can challenge a signature, but you can't challenge a pattern, and Lisa Marie's pattern was crystal clear to anyone willing to look. Riley Keough walked into that courtroom not just as a grieving daughter. She walked in as the only person left who actually knew what her mother was afraid of. May 2023, 4 months after Lisa Marie died. 4 months of legal filings, of courtroom language, of a grandmother and granddaughter on opposite sides of a probate dispute that the entire world was watching. And then, quietly, it was over. The petition was withdrawn. The challenge to the trust amendment, the one Priscilla had filed in the raw, immediate weeks after Lisa Marie's death, was dropped. A settlement had been reached. Riley Keough and her daughter, Marie Presley, born just weeks after Lisa Marie died, would retain full control of the Presley Trust. Graceland, the Elvis likeness rights, the royalties, all of it exactly as Lisa Marie had intended when she signed that amendment in 2016 and never looked back. On paper, Riley won. Clean, complete, exactly what her mother wanted, upheld by a court process that Priscilla ultimately chose not to see through to the end. But here's the thing about settlements. They end the legal fight. They do not end the story. And anyone who looked at what came after that May announcement and called it resolution wasn't paying close enough attention. The terms of the settlement were sealed. That matters, because sealed means we don't know what, if anything, changed hands. We don't know if there were financial concessions. We don't know if there were agreements about access, about appearances, about how Graceland would be managed going forward. We know Riley kept control. We know Priscilla withdrew. Everything else, the actual mechanics of why she withdrew, what she got in exchange for walking away, is locked behind a confidentiality agreement that neither side is going to break publicly. And so what we're left with is the performance of resolution. The photographs of Priscilla and Riley together at Graceland events, standing side by side, the elder and the heir, the grandmother and the granddaughter, presenting a united front to the cameras. Warm, civil, family. Except these two women just spent 4 months in court. Except one of them questioned the validity of the other's dead mother's signature. Except one of them filed a legal petition at the precise moment the other was simultaneously grieving and giving birth. And now they're smiling for photographs at Elvis tributes. What does that smile actually mean? What lives underneath the performance of peace when the lawyers just finished fighting over hundreds of millions of dollars and the terms are sealed from public view? These are not cynical questions. These are the only honest questions. Because in families with this much at stake, public reconciliation is rarely the full picture. It's what you show the cameras. What happens when the cameras leave is a different matter entirely. And what Riley is left carrying when those cameras leave, that's the part of this story that doesn't get talked about enough. Think about what she actually inherited, not in the legal sense, not in the financial sense, in the human sense. She lost her mother in January 2023. She gave birth to her first child, a daughter, Memphis, and became the legal head of one of the most scrutinized, most valuable, most complicated estates in American entertainment history, all within the same staggering window of time. She is in her 30s. She has a newborn. She has no parents left, and she is now responsible for Graceland. For Elvis, for the entire Presley legacy, for making decisions that will affect how one of the most iconic figures in American cultural history is remembered and monetized and preserved for generations to come. She didn't train for this. She didn't campaign for it. She was an actress. She built her own career, her own identity, her own life deliberately separate from the Presley gravity. She married musician Ben Smith Peterson and made movies and kept a relatively low profile for someone with her last name. And then life and death handed her a crown she never auditioned for. Lisa Marie chose her deliberately. That's the important thing to hold on to. Lisa Marie had 6 years to look at that 2016 amendment and change her mind. 6 years to call her attorney and say, actually, let's restructure this differently. She never did. She looked at her children, Riley and Benjamin, and decided they were the right hands for everything she would eventually leave behind. The fact that Benjamin died in 2020, 3 years before Lisa Marie, meant the full weight of that trust fell entirely to Riley. Sole trustee, sole decision-maker, sole protector. And sole target, because the settlement ended Priscilla's legal challenge, but it didn't end the circling. The estate didn't become less valuable the moment the petition was withdrawn. The vultures didn't pack up and go home just because Riley won a court battle. In fact, in some ways, the settlement may have only confirmed to certain parties that Riley was holding something worth fighting over, and that the fight, for some of them, was just beginning. Which is exactly what happened in 2024, when a company nobody had heard of suddenly claimed that Lisa Marie had taken out a loan against Graceland, the actual property, the actual home, and that the estate was now in foreclosure. A foreclosure attempt on Graceland, based on documents the family immediately called fraudulent. Based on a transaction Lisa Marie allegedly entered into that her own team said she never made. The family fought it. They won. But the attempt itself told you everything you needed to know about what Riley is up against. Not just one legal challenge from one family member. An ongoing, open season on an estate that certain people will never stop trying to get a piece of. Priscilla stepped back. The cameras got their reconciliation photograph. Memphis Presley, named for the city that made her great-grandfather immortal, is growing up inside all of this, the newest generation of a family that has never once been allowed to simply rest. Here's what nobody wants to say out loud, because saying it out loud means admitting that the fairy tale version of this story, the one where Elvis built something beautiful and his family protected it, and everyone honored his memory with love and dignity, was never quite real. Here's the uncomfortable truth that sits underneath every legal filing, every sealed settlement, every smiling photograph taken at Graceland while lawyers compare notes in the background. This war didn't start when Lisa Marie died. It started when Elvis did. And it has never, not for a single decade since August 1977, actually stopped. What Riley Keough is living through right now is not a new chapter. It is the latest installment of a conflict that has been running for nearly 50 years. A conflict over who owns the Presley story, who controls the Presley money, who gets to decide what Elvis meant, what Lisa Marie meant, what this family stands for, and how it gets packaged and sold to a world that has never stopped being hungry for all of it. The faces change. The legal language changes. The dollar amounts get bigger. But the core fight, who has power over this legacy, has never changed. Not once. Trace the line and you'll see it clearly. Elvis dies, and immediately the question becomes who controls what he left behind. Priscilla steps in as executor and builds an empire. And to her credit, she builds it brilliantly. But in building it, she builds herself into it so completely that separating her from the estate becomes almost structurally impossible. Lisa Marie comes of age and is supposed to inherit full control, but inherits instead a machine that has been running without her for so long that she's more passenger than driver. She spends years trying to find her footing inside an empire that has her name on it, but someone else's fingerprints all over the controls. Then the money starts disappearing. $100 million allegedly drained through mismanagement while Lisa Marie was kept in the dark about the true state of her own finances. She sues, she fights. She wins enough to keep going but loses enough to never fully recover. And in the middle of all that financial warfare, she makes her move, quietly, deliberately in 2016, and removes the people she no longer trusts, puts her children in position. Does what she can to make sure that when she's gone, the estate lands in hands that she chose with her own eyes open. And then she dies, and the whole cycle tries to start again. That's the pattern, that's the machine. And Riley Keough is now standing inside it, trying to run it differently than everyone who ran it before her, while simultaneously fending off every new version of the same old challenge. Someone, somewhere, deciding that what the Presley family built belongs partly or fully to them. 2024 foreclosure attempt, the one targeting Graceland itself based on loan documents the family called fraudulent, wasn't just a random scam. It was a symptom of what happens when you are sitting on one of the most valuable pieces of American cultural real estate in existence, and everyone in the world knows it. There will always be another attempt, another petition, another legal maneuver dressed up in the language of protection or debt or legitimate grievance. Because the estate is too valuable for the attempts to ever fully stop. Riley needs to understand that, and from everything we've seen, she does. She fought the foreclosure attempt and won. She faced down Priscilla's petition and won. She is not, it turns out, the overwhelmed, grieving daughter that anyone who filed against her in early 2023 was counting on her being. But winning battles is not the same as winning the war. And the war in this context is something bigger than any single legal challenge. The war is whether Riley can hold this legacy together, keep Graceland operating, keep Elvis's image relevant to new generations, manage the royalties, protect the brand, while also being a mother, a wife, a human being carrying the specific and crushing grief of having lost her brother and her mother within 3 years of each other. While also figuring out who she is inside all of this. Because Riley Keough existed before she became the Presley heir. She had her own career, her own creative identity, her own life. And now all of that has to coexist with the weight of a name that has never once been allowed to be just a name. What would Lisa Marie think? That's the question that hangs over all of it. If Lisa Marie could see what happened after January 12th, the petition, the courtroom, the sealed settlement, the photographs, would she feel that her wishes were honored? Would she feel that Riley is okay? Would she feel that everything she fought for, documented, amended, and protected was worth it? Honest answer is probably yes and no. Yes, because Riley has the control Lisa Marie wanted her to have. The trust held, the amendment stood, the children inherited what their mother intended them to inherit. That part worked. But no, because the fact that it had to be fought for at all, the fact that even in death Lisa Marie's decisions couldn't simply be respected without a legal challenge, the fact that her daughter had to walk into a courtroom weeks after burying her, none of that is okay. None of that is what anyone who loved Lisa Marie would have wanted for her. Riley Keough didn't ask for this crown. She didn't campaign for it, didn't prepare for it, didn't spend her life positioning herself to inherit an empire. She just loved her mother, and her mother trusted her. And now she is standing in the middle of a legacy that is simultaneously a gift and a target, holding it together with both hands while the world watches to see if she'll drop it. She hasn't dropped it yet, and if what we've seen so far tells us anything, she's not planning to. The question isn't whether she's strong enough. The question is how long before the next challenge comes, and who's going to be behind it. Lisa Marie spent the last years of her life fighting to put the right people in charge of everything she loved. Riley is still fighting to honor that. If this story hit different, if you think the Presley legacy deserves better than what it's been through, drop a comment, tell us where you stand, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. This story is far from over.